And joining us now, former communications director at the Republican National Committee, Doug Heye, and former chief spokesperson for Vice President Kamala Harris, and the host of Simone on MSNBC, Symone Sanders Townsend. All right, guys, thanks for being here. I just saw John Kasich on the air an hour ago with our friend Chris Jansing saying that just because abortion won big in Ohio last night, and so did marijuana, by the way, it doesn't mean that nationally or that on the state level for national office, it's going to be a winner for Democrats. That Joe Biden's not going to win Ohio because voters decided that they wanted to enshrine abortion into their constitution.
I mean, I think Democrat hasn't won Ohio in a presidential in a while. It used to be a reliably purple place. It's been looking a little more red as cycles continue, but that doesn't mean that he can't do well there, right? It's all about closing the margins from from a campaign perspective. In a place that is, you look at what happened in Kentucky. The way Governor Beshear held on is he ran up his numbers in the urban areas, his margins in the urban areas. They voted for him last time, but now they went a little bigger. Probably some due to Daniel Cameron being the chief architect of not getting Breonna Taylor justice. But he also closed up the margins in some of the rural areas, some of the reliably red places. That is what Joe Biden is going to have to do in some of the counties in Michigan.
Can Joe Biden do that? I mean, Andy Beshear is one particular candidate for that state. Can Joe Biden do the same in other purple states that he needs to win? I mean, you look at the polling, people aren't excited for him. They just are not excited for him. That might not mean that they're more excited for Donald Trump. Are the Democrats relying on enough voters coming out and saying, I just can't do Donald Trump, I will vote for anybody else but him?
I think, well, one, I will say, I think Joe Biden has done it before. He did it, he's the president because he did it in 2020 against Donald Trump. And the way it's looking right now might be against Donald Trump again. But I think that this is why the campaign is going to have to make sure that they invest early and that they are aggressive, not just with ads, but with on the ground organizing. That is what made the difference in a number of these states last night. Ohio didn't enshrine abortion rights because people felt good, all right? They were communicated to and aggressively organized to understand what the issue was on the ballot.
So, Doug, does the issue of abortion for Republicans change? Does the messaging change? I mean, we heard again today that the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, came out and again repeated that a 15-week ban is reasonable, even though Republicans lost both state houses in Virginia. In fact, I have that soundbite. Let's play it.
Abortion is potentially one of the most difficult topics in Virginia and around the nation. And my hope continues to be that we can find a way to come together as Virginians and lead. I do believe that there is a place we can come together, common ground. This is difficult. I think Virginians don't want to be extreme either direction. I think they actually want to find a place to come together, and that's what I think we tried to represent, reasonableness. And I think in the long term, I think reasonableness is where people will come together.
So he's continuing to say reasonable on this. He stopped himself. He almost said was, and then he said, I continue to be. Is that the right move for Republicans?
Well, I think it shows how hard this is of an issue for Republicans to communicate on and also legislate on. And, we used to hear the old phrase that was coined by Tip O'Neill, all politics are local. It's now that all politics are national. And so whatever Glenn Youngkin tries to do in Virginia gets partially defined by what happens in South Carolina. Glenn Youngkin can talk about 15 weeks, but voters will often hear 6 weeks coming from South Carolina. Similarly, whenever we hear Ron DeSantis attack Gavin Newsom in California or vice versa, it demonstrates that what happens in Florida doesn't stay in Florida. What happens in California doesn't stay in California. And that becomes very tricky for Republicans as state legislatures are legislating out loud and ultimately hurting Republican chances at the ballot box.
Let me ask you about what happened in Kentucky in terms of Daniel Cameron. Do you think it was abortion that helped get Beshear over the edge, or was it just that Beshear was a popular governor in that state? Or can you say that Donald Trump's endorsement of Cameron didn't help him?
So a few things on that. One, obviously, the first-person ad looking directly to the camera was very powerful and very helpful to Beshear. Two, everything that Simone talked about with the governor is what popular incumbent governors do and should do. So it shouldn't be terribly surprising that Governor Beshear won re-election. He was popular. Three, let's get rid of the idea that everything that happens in American politics has to do with Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump was going to support, whether it was full board in or just an endorsement, a Republican candidate. But so much of our American life right now is either put in the prism of Donald Trump or Taylor Swift, and it doesn't always have to be that way.
I mean,
Doug.
okay, Doug, sure.
We can watch a football game, and it doesn't have to involve the Eras Tour.
I don't want to watch a football game then, though. That's just me. Simone, let me ask you about Democrats. We'll put Taylor Swift aside. Does the White House really feel comfortable with Joe Biden? Do they really feel comfortable running him for re-election? I'm serious.
Well, look, first of all, it is Joe Biden's White House, right? So, like, if they don't feel comfortable, they probably shouldn't work there. But he is the candidate. I think that it is absolutely normal for voters, Democrats, even people that don't have a D behind their name to say, hey, maybe we should look at someone different.
They weren't doing that for Obama.
Prior to the man deciding that he's running for re-election.
Bill Clinton either.
Well,
this is different.
I used to work for Bernie Sanders, and I do remember him suggesting that someone should primary Obama.
This is a wide swath of the Democratic electorate. It's not just the progressive wing.
I just think, look at what happened last night. Andy Bashir, we were talking about Kentucky. Let's talk about Andy Bashir. He ran on Bidenomics. He talked about the battery production facilities that were brought to Kentucky thanks to money from the Biden administration. He talked about the money going in
Is Biden
to
good at selling his own policies?
I think that they need to stop talking about Bidenomics and just tell the people what it is, which is what the president has. I heard him do the other day when he talked about the money going to Amtrak and rail. He just told the people what it was. And so this notion that there's something wrong with Joe Biden and they got to get rid of him, the people ran on what Joe Biden was saying last night, and they did pretty well.
I think we need more Taylor Swift in all of politics, make it more palatable
and Beyonce
for everybody. And Beyonce, I'll take that as well. So most